Here are five timeless truths in trading that I don't hear many people talking about. I'm going to rapid fire as well. I'm going to go through these as quickly as I can to be as time efficient as possible. So let's start with number one. Retail liquidity pools don't exist like you think that they do. The idea that, if we have got, let's say, equal highs here, and it's like, oh my God, retail stops are here, therefore it's going to be targeted. That's bullshit. And I'm going to prove it to you. I actually have a video going through all of the different scientific research proving that this is not true in the way that I just described it. But for this purpose of this video, I'm just going to describe it in the context of one thing, CFDs, right? This also relates to, and is why I put the second part of point one being brokers don't function like you think that they do. So what does this mean? Well, when you're trading, let's just say you're trading FX, right, through a broker, you're not trading the market. You're trading a contract, which is a representation of the market. Okay. So CFD stands for contract for difference, right? Contract is just a derivative. What's a derivative? It basically means that you're not trading the market, you are trading a representation of it. It's a derivative, it's derived from the market. Now, why is this important? Well, because let's just say you here, little Jimmy, feeling all happy with this trade idea. You're like, right, fuck it. I'm going to put on a position of, just say I'm going to put a lot on, one lot, feeling pretty good. And the way I do that is I do it through a middleman. Now, who is the middleman? I do that through a broker. Now, what does the broker do? I think a lot of beginners assume that what brokers do is they then take that order and they then put it into the actual market, right? They're like, okay, cool. Well, he put a lot on, therefore I'm going to put one lot on. This is not what brokers are doing. And I just never hear anybody talking about this, right? But it's so important to understand that in the context of this first point, that retail liquidity pools don't exist like you think they do. Why? How do brokers function? Brokers are businesses. Okay. Businesses want to protect against risks. And if you're operating in an industry where 99% of traders lose money, you're probably not going to copy all of the orders that they're putting in. You're just probably not going to do that, right? Especially because they're the ones that are providing you with leverage, right? It'd be maybe a little bit different if people were just using zero leverage and just using their own money, right? Look at the stock market, for example, excluding options and other derivatives and stuff like that. And so what does this mean? Well, it means that brokers operate surprisingly similar to betting shops. If I bet on the outcome of a football game, right? That is so similar to what brokers are doing. What are brokers doing? They tend to pay out winners from the losers, right? This is generally how they'll operate. It's not all the time true, but this is definitely something that they do. And it's still allowed, even in a regulated industry, it's allowed. Now, unlike a betting shop, they do have a few extra layers to this, specifically in terms of how they manage their risk. So, like I said, they are not just placing your order in the market most of the time in the way that you're doing it. Most of the time, they're managing their risk as a whole. So if you're running a business, you're running a brokerage, you're going to have risks, right? And based on those risks, you're going to take precautions. Does it make more sense to analyze people's profiles? So they look at like how much money they have, how actively they're trading, how risk tolerant they are, like what sort of trades they're doing, their performance, and then assessing how risky that person is as a whole, and then managing the risk of the entire of these groups and categories of people. Or does it make sense to copy all of their trades and do all this sort of stuff and take the other side? They do all of those things, right? But a large part of what they're doing is they are, I don't know why that disappeared, is they are analyzing systemic risks, okay, and they're managing risks at scale. This can mean something like they are already in a giant position of hedging, and then for every new position that is entered or exited, they adjust, basically that portfolio that is designed to offset the risk from all of the traders, right? Again, this is a whole detailed topic, but I have friends of mine that have worked in brokerages, and you research it yourself. You don't believe me, research it. But the point is that you can't target retail liquidity because you normally can't see it, because most retail traders aren't even touching the market. Now, does this mean that liquidity pools don't exist? Of course, liquidity pools exist, but specifically retail liquidity pools are largely a fallacy. And there's many more reasons for that. Again, as I said, I don't know if I did say it, I've got a full video breaking them down. One of my SMC is bullshit videos, or me destroying SMC or proving SMC is bullshit. I can't remember the title now. But I break it down using actual scientific proven evidence, not just a talking head talking at you on YouTube, which in general, I would definitely say it's always worthwhile researching what people say, myself included, before making any kind of conclusions about how the market works. But the long and short of it is your orders don't touch the market like you think they do. So the idea that your stop loss is being watched by anyone is really not a great way to look at things. Of course, there are exceptions, there are times, yes, but for the most part, no. That's obviously excluding when we get into the discussions of size or anything like that. But again, watch the other video if you're interested in that. Number two, echo chambers of strategy performance. I'll give you an example of Larry Williams. He wrote a book after he had a year of really, really good performance, really, really good performance. And so at this point in time, he was like, you know what? I'm gonna come up with a little cheeky book about what I did. Right? Book was a massive success. Even to this day, people still talk about this book, probably made loads of money off it. But then if you look at the performance of him and the strategy over the next few years, is he lost a huge portion of it. Now, of course, I don't know the numbers, but this is just a visual representation. So, feel free to shit on me in the comments if you think that I'm being wrong about any of this or whatever. But yeah. So over the next few years, but the problem is that you create these echo chambers online because a book lasts forever. No one actually tends to do much due diligence in the trading space, right? And so what happens is that this book's success creates communities of people around it who are massive advocates of what they do. And all of these people will go off and teach other people. And what you end up having is this absolute army. I'm just going to represent people with circles because it's quicker to draw. Even if each one of these people only explains it to another 3 people or 2 people, this web goes out exponentially. But fundamentally, it's all based on this idea. And this idea sometimes isn't so great. An echo chamber is basically where we get a limited view. We're not getting the full picture. We're getting a small segment or collection of information that is giving us a misrepresentation of reality. Now, why am I mentioning it here? Well, it's not just this that is the issue. Most people will champion. Let's just say you have a system that you teach to people, right? And let's just say 90% fail. This is fairly standard in the trading industry. And to be honest with you, it's not actually 100% the fault of educators because there are parts of trading that are experience based and you can't force people to take the right action. You can help guide them, but you can't force them to take the action. They have to do that themselves. And unfortunately, when you're relying on people to do things themselves, as much as I wish it wasn't true, it just results in these sorts of statistics. The same thing is true in business courses, all these types of things, right? It still takes effort. It's not like the end result is not the learning. The learning is just a stepping stone, right? And so this isn't an issue that's there's a low success rate because that is just true of all trading in general. The issue is that when people start hyper focusing on this 1%, and they start trying to copy everything that they do. The idea that you are going to be able to create this kind of copy and paste culture. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. Do you really sit down and think with yourself? Do you think that the answer to all your trading problems are copy and paste? Like, is that genuinely what you think? And for the longest time, I actually thought that that was possible because I was naive. I was a lot younger. And I thought that was normal. But if you really think about it, right, nothing in life is going to be that easy. And it's not so much the percentage of people that succeed that's bad, it's the culture that is sometimes presented as, oh, these 1% sometimes I think associate what got them to this point. So people, I think, tend to overstress the importance of technicals in their success. And this leads to the type of education they provide to friends or at scale if they educate on YouTube or whatever. It leads to them spilling out their biases and basically misleading people all over again, when there are a lot of things where usually they discount for. Things like a little bit of discretion, which is built through experience. Other things like knowing how to pick the right environments, right? So this is all part of risk management, but advanced risk management as well would be one. Right, these things often are discounted and sold under the premise of, oh no, these are just you just need these simple technical only rules. But as we'll discuss in a minute, rules are not the only solution. Rules are fine, rules are important, rules are good, but they must be presented with something else as well. So anyway, that's echo chambers. Number three, you see what you've been trained to see, right? This is why it doesn't make sense. Whenever I get comments in YouTube videos now being like, that's wrong, you drew that line wrong, you don't understand, X concept, you clearly haven't learned this properly, shit like this. All this screams is I'm a beginner. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe a little bit wrong with the attitude. That's debatable, but there's nothing actually wrong with this because there's nothing wrong with it in terms of why you're doing it, but it is a definite hallmark of being a beginner. Why? Because within these, the idea of right and wrong is an issue because most of the time there is no such thing as right and wrong when it comes down to technical analysis. Technical analysis is mostly art. It's not science. People try and distill it down to a science. Now, there are elements of science, but even then, not a crazy amount. What most people will do is they'll find a period of time, right? Now, they could either forward test this on a demo or they could do it some other way. Let's say January 2022, and they trade it either backtest or they trade it on a demo or even a live, right? They trade it for 8 months until August, which is what the A is here. They get kind of decent results, but they're like, okay, I want to improve. And so what do? They go back to these results and they find out what worked really well here. And they optimize. And let's just say they take their results from, over this whole period. Originally they made, 20%. And now, because of all the adjustments they've made, now it's like, oh my God, I made 80%, right? And they suddenly start feeling like a superhero with their own franchise and they're about to fucking break into the multiverse. But then when they go forward with this, what tends to happen, whether it happens straight away or happens at some point in the future, so whether it happens here, whether it happens here, eventually what will happen is they're so over optimized for this specific period of time that as soon as something changes in the market, the conditions change, whatever, suddenly they start losing badly and it starts wiping out huge portions, if not all, of the wins and gains that they have made. This phenomenon is very well known as overfitting. Why is it so important? Why am I even bringing this up? Because if you overfit based on the past, you're assuming that the past is always going to stay the same, but just look at the markets, right? This is pretty zoomed out on a daily chart, but the same thing is true on a micro level as well. Do you really think that the systems that worked really, really well during this rocket period are going to be the same that work well here, or the same that work well during this period, or the same that work well here, or they're all different. And yet everybody seems to be obsessed with, oh my God, like the way I've marked out this technicals is right or it's wrong. You don't know. None of us know. The goal is not just to have technicals. Now I'm going to circle back to this in a minute with point 5 because it will all link together. But for now, systematic systems need a person because the markets change. Similar to what I just said, right? Systematic systems, copy paste is kind of how it's generally presented. They have major weaknesses. The major weakness of systematic systems is they're not adaptable. And so if you're not adapting them, then you're screwed. Eventually, they will fail. This is very true in the algorithmic space with trading. If you trade any algorithm, you'll find that if you test it back far enough, there'll be a point where it stops working completely. This is why this is the value of having a human operator as well. Number 5. So circling back to what we said a minute ago, right? Why is a simple system more valuable? And the key part of this is this second part here. Rules are just tools, but they're not the whole pie. Here's what most people will do. They'll go to YouTube. They'll be like, oh my God, I found this cool strategy. I'm going to use this. This is going to be great. Whoop-de-doo. They're feeling pretty pumped at this point, right? Like, cool, I'm going to start using it. Maybe they even start winning, but eventually they're going to hit a loss or a series of losses, most likely. Now, let's just be really optimistic here for a minute and say that this person is disciplined enough that they're not just taking three losses and switching things, which, by the way, most people are doing. Let's just say they're being really disciplined and they're waiting for, 20 trades, 30 trades before making a confirmed decision about whether something works or doesn't work. So just by doing that, by the way, they're already ahead of like 90% of, wannabe traders, right? But let's just say they're doing that. Even then, they're still potentially screwing things up because then if it still doesn't work, they'll circle back and they'll start finding a new strategy. Most people will just literally just go back all the way back here. They'll just switch all the time. But let's say you've been disciplined, you've come back. The problem is at this point is they are missing the point of trading as a whole, right? They are basically putting too much importance to technical analysis. Why? Technical analysis, the idea, the construction of rules. You could have one person, so let's just say person one, who has 150 indicators. Now, when I say indicators, that can be price action based, it can be indicators, whatever. There are 150 indicators and rules. Very specific. They get setups every now and again, but it's hyper analyzed. Person two just has I'll buy at X level, right? With limit order. And then they focus just on managing it. Both of these people can be profitable. So why pick the more complicated one? But more importantly, it's not the technicals here that are giving them the edge. This is the most important thing here. Rules are built not for the sake of it. The rules themselves are normally not the things giving you the edge. It's normally when you use those rules, how you use those rules. And that's essentially picking the right environment. Now, for those of you that have been watching me recently, I know I'm banging on about this a lot, but it's important because if you overestimate the importance of the importance of your rules, then you're going to miss the key points, which are, let's move this over a little bit. Okay. The markets will present themselves in many ways. Maybe there's a classic, nice, strong pullback, but a good trend. Maybe there's a consolidatory environment. And you can have different variations of each one of these. For example, with a trend, has nice pullbacks, but this sort of a trend maybe only has tiny pullbacks. Why is this important? Well, because if you can't predict which one of these you're in, or you have no actual basis for why you're even trading a technical system in the first place, what are you doing? What are you doing? What you're doing is you're hoping that you're going to hit the ideal environment because the technical rules that work well here probably not going to be the same ones that work here, and they definitely aren't going to be the same ones that work here. And so if you're just trading, I've got my technical rules, great, in all these environments, then you're not really doing anything. You've got a structured risk management plan around random environments. If you don't have a way of picking which one of these you're likely to be in, what do you have really? Like you could have 150 indicators telling you one thing, but all of those, whether they're an indicator in the literal sense or a price action system, that's all the past. It's all happened. If you don't have anything else to be like, oh, I don't know what environment we're going to be going into, even if that's as simple as volatility, because picking the direction is going to be hard. But even it's like, okay, I think the volatility is going to increase. That alone is an interesting point that we can build off of. But it's critical because if you build rules around everything, you're building a system around nothing and vice versa. So you need to pick something that is proven, and it can be something really, really simple. But even something, if you go back over the past, ideally you want to be referencing like academic, like finding relationships that have been proven in academic research and scientific research and things like this. But it could be even something like you find a study or a series of studies that show that 80% of the time, the market you're looking at consolidates, right? That is the basis to begin building an edge off of. It's super simple. It's a very simplistic one, but it's something you can build off of, right? It's something you can build off of, and that's great. But most people don't do that. They just start building and building and building, and then they wonder why things aren't working. It's just doesn't make any sense to obsess about the rules. This is why I'm always saying that technical analysis, one of the best definitions of technical analysis is a million ways of doing the exact same thing. Okay. But technical analysis is sexy. I honestly think that people would probably make more money if they put the same amount of time they do into technical analysis if they just became an artist, because that's still drawing shit on a chart. Well, not on a chart, but drawing stuff. You'd be way better. You'd probably even make more money than you would trading if you just think that technical is the answer to anything. Now, does it mean that you can't be an exclusively technical trader? No. Okay, because I always get shit in the comments when I say this sort of thing, and they're like, "Oh, what? You think technicals don't work?" That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying there needs to be a reason for why you're exploiting for why you're using technicals, right? What are you exploiting? There needs to be a clear direction, a clear incentive. That is what I'm saying. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I appreciate you leaving a like. And yeah, well, actually, no, fuck it, don't leave a like. Unlike it if you've liked it, and dislike it. Um, I will see you guys soon. Yeah, take care.